Under the neon lights of a packed arena, tension crackles in the air. A police officer is tackled to the ground outside a Premier League darts event, caught in a scandal nobody saw coming. On stage, a reigning champion loses control, shoving his opponent as the crowd erupts in chaos. Elsewhere, a rising star throws his career away in a match-fixing disaster, while a former world champion accuses his rival of rigging the very ground they stand on. This isn't just about bad sportsmanship or fiery rivalries. This is the dark underbelly of darts, a world where careers have crumbled, reputations have been shattered, and controversy has stolen the spotlight. What really happened in the sport's biggest scandals, and which players never recovered from the fallout? You're about to find out. We're starting soft without first scandal. During a 2012 Premier League darts match in Nottingham, James Wade accused Adrian Lewis of something bizarre, shaking the floorboards to throw him off. It happened mid-match. Wade, struggling to find his rhythm, suddenly stopped, turned to Lewis, and claimed the playing surface was moving under his feet. He believed Lewis was intentionally shifting his weight to create subtle vibrations, disrupting his concentration. Lewis immediately dismissed the accusation, calling it an excuse for Wade's poor performance. The officials intervened, but there was no real way to prove or disprove the claim. The match continued with an awkward tension, and Wade, visibly rattled, never regained control.
Picked up. There's no excuse for just almost slapping the darts now.
Well, he's clearly annoyed with himself. The way the darts are going in is...
What's this about?
Well, Adrian Lewis just showed us the problem. With the way the game's gone, James Wade is under pressure. He's moaning more now than he was at the start. And I just think it's such a sour grapes.
And he's suggesting that Bruce Bentley, Adrian's trying it now because he got away with it earlier.
Why would Adrian Lewis be trying mind games right now? Because he has the win in the palm of his hand. If there's any point in this match he doesn't need to play mind games, it's right now.
Lewis went on to win, but the controversy stuck. Some saw it as Wade reaching for an explanation in frustration. Others speculated that, intentional or not, the movement could have had an effect. Either way, it was a rare moment where a darts match nearly broke down over something as fundamental as the stability of the oche. That wouldn't be the last time Adrian Lewis found himself in controversy. In 2018, things escalated far beyond a verbal dispute, leading to his suspension from professional play. But before we get to that, let's move on to a scandal that didn't happen on stage, but just outside of it. A police officer, a Premier League darts event, and a cocaine bust. A Premier League darts event at Glasgow's Oval Hydro should have been just another night of high-stakes competition. Instead, it became the scene of an unexpected scandal, one involving law enforcement, drugs, and a frantic attempt to escape. A Police Scotland detective was caught trying to bring cocaine into the venue. Security staff, trained to spot suspicious behaviour, intercepted the officer before he could enter. What followed was a chaotic scene. Rather than face questioning, the officer bolted, attempting to flee the premises. He didn't get far. Security and local authorities quickly detained him, leading to an immediate investigation. The story broke soon after, drawing national attention, not just because of the drug possession, but because of who was involved. A serving detective. For the PDC, it was an unwelcome distraction. The organisation had no direct connection to the officer, but having a major tournament linked to a drug scandal wasn't exactly good PR. Fans and players reacted with a mix of shock and amusement. But while this scandal unfolded outside the venue, the next one took place at the very heart of the game. A young prodigy, once tipped as the future of darts, threw everything away in a match-fixing disaster that was unbelievable. Leighton Bennett was supposed to be a future sensation, a teenager who made headlines for beating world-class players before he was even old enough to buy a pint. By the time he turned 18, he had already been compared to Phil Taylor and Michael van Gerwen. But in 2024, his career took a turn nobody expected. An 8-year ban, match-fixing, the kind of scandal that doesn't just derail a career, it destroys it. The investigation began quietly. The Darts Regulation Authority had been monitoring betting patterns, and something wasn't adding up. Multiple suspicious wagers had been placed on matches involving Bennett. Bets that predicted not just outcomes, but precise scoring scenarios that played out exactly as expected. At first, there was no hard evidence, just a string of unusual results. But when the investigation deepened, the DRA uncovered a pattern of deliberate underperformance. Bennett had fixed 4 matches, manipulating his scoring in ways that only someone at his level could get away with. When questioned, he failed to cooperate with the investigation, making his situation even worse. The DRA came down hard, an 8-year suspension, the longest match-fixing ban in darts history. For context, most sports hand out shorter bans for doping violations. This wasn't just about throwing a few legs, it was about integrity, trust, and the very foundation of professional competition. The reaction was swift. Fans were stunned, fellow players were furious. Even bookmakers who rely on the legitimacy of sports betting took notice. Some called the punishment excessive for an offence committed at such a young age. Others argued it was justified. Bennett knew what he was doing, and if he had gotten away with it, the damage to the sport could have been far worse. For Bennett, the ban was effectively a career death sentence. By the time it expires, he'll be 27. Maybe it's enough time for the world to forget, maybe it isn't. Sponsors disappeared overnight, and tournament invites stopped. This wasn't just another controversy, it was one of the most significant betrayals of the sport in recent memory. But while Bennett's career ended in disgrace, another player's downfall had nothing to do with match fixing. Instead, it was a past crime, a violent act that led to prison time and overshadowed an otherwise respected career. Chris Mason was no ordinary darts player. A 2-time World Championship semi-finalist with a natural flair for the game, he was a rising star in the late 90s and early 2000s. But in 2003, his career took a turn that had nothing to do with darts. Mason was sentenced to 2 years in prison for aggravated burglary, a crime that stunned the darts world. He and an accomplice had broken into a house, assaulted a man, and made off with stolen valuables. This wasn't a minor offence, it was violent, it was premeditated, and it put him behind bars just as he was reaching his prime as a player. But the story didn't end there. While serving his sentence, Mason attempted something straight out of a crime thriller, an escape attempt. Details of the plan remain scarce, but what's known is that he and another inmate made a failed bid for freedom. They didn't make it far. The attempt was quickly thwarted, and Mason's situation went from bad to worse.
So I've been in a few months by now, and I had a bit of a run-in with one of the officers in the jail, and he just started monitoring my phone calls. So we got all times right. I'll be over there at 9. You come at 10. As long as we're back by, I only needed a minute. I said, as long as we're back by 9:30. I said, no one to know. We've gone, and everybody was doing it. Literally everybody was doing it. So I jumps in the motor, surrounded by police. Of course, then you're regarded as a prisoner that's trying to escape. So you get cat aid.
His reputation, already in tatters, now had another layer of disgrace. For most athletes, this would have been the end. A criminal record, a failed escape attempt, and a sport that had no reason to welcome him back. But Mason wasn't done. After serving his time, he returned to darts, determined to salvage what was left of his career. He clawed his way back into professional tournaments, even winning a Players' Championship title in 2006. But the real turnaround came in the commentary booth. Mason rebranded himself as a respected darts analyst, known for his sharp insights and no-nonsense opinions. Still, no matter how much he rebuilt, his past was never fully erased. Fans remained divided. Some admired his resilience, others never let go of his criminal record. His story became one of the most controversial redemption arcs in darts history. But while Mason's scandal was rooted in personal choices, the next one unfolded in the heat of competition, an on-stage altercation that forced the PDC to take action against one of the sport's biggest names. Once again, Adrian Lewis found himself in the middle of a darts controversy. There was no roaring crowd, no deafening walk-on music, just 2 players, a quiet booth, and a match that should have been routine. But what happened between Adrian Lewis and Jose Justicia at the 2018 UK Open qualifier was anything but routine. The tension started early. Something about Justicia's behaviour had set Lewis off, though to this day it's unclear exactly what. Maybe it was a slow play tactic. Maybe it was just an attitude that rubbed Lewis the wrong way. But whatever it was, Lewis made his feelings clear. From that point on, Justicia looked rattled. Every time he stepped up to throw, Lewis pointed at him, gestured aggressively, and kept the pressure on. It wasn't outright physical, but it was enough to break Justicia's focus completely. He hesitated before throwing, unable to ignore Lewis standing nearby. The match should have been about darts, but it had turned into a psychological battle, and Justicia was losing. Lewis, on the other hand, thrived in the chaos. He closed out the match with a win, But instead of a handshake and a walk-off, the hostility escalated. Lewis got in Justicia's face, jabbing his finger at him, refusing to let it go. Security had to step in. In the tournament setting that was supposed to be calm and professional, officials now found themselves separating two players like it was a boxing weigh-in.
There it is, Adrian Lewis has somehow found a way to win it, and he is still not letting it go, and they're having to separate these two. Adrian Lewis has somehow won that match, but he's marred by some pretty ugly scenes that we do not want to see. Adrian Lewis through to the semi-finals. A superb run from Jose Perales is brought...
The PDC acted fast. They immediately suspended Lewis pending an investigation. Days later, the verdict was in, a £3,000 fine and a 3-month suspended ban. It wasn't the harshest punishment, but it was a clear message. This kind of behaviour wouldn't be tolerated, no matter how big a name you were. For Lewis, it was another stain on a career that had already seen its fair share of controversy. A 2-time world champion shouldn't have been making headlines for incidents like this, but from that moment on, his reputation shifted. He was no longer just a brilliant player, he was unpredictable, aggressive, and dangerously close to derailing his own legacy. But while Lewis's fine was severe, it was nothing compared to the largest financial penalty ever handed out in darts history. That belonged to Gerwyn Price, a player whose celebrations and antics cost him over £20,000. Gerwyn Price has never been the quiet type. At the 2018 Grand Slam of Darts final against Gary Anderson, he pushed things too far, and it cost him £21,000, the biggest fine in darts history. The match itself was explosive. Price, an ex-rugby player turned darts pro, was up against Anderson, a 2-time world champion and one of the sport's most respected figures. From the start, Price made it clear he wasn't just there to win, he was there to get in Anderson's head. Every big shot was met with a roaring celebration, not just a fist pump or a yell, but a full-blown, chest-thumping display of energy. And it wasn't just about pumping himself up, it was directed at Anderson. After almost every leg, Price walked right past him, glaring, flexing and muttering. Anderson wasn't having it. The tension built throughout the match, boiling over when Price got too close after a winning dart. Anderson snapped, shoving Price away.
He's just a buckle.
Now he did overstep the mark, because he's got in Anderson's face there for mine. There was contact made and it was initiated by Price. I don't think there's too much doubt about that way. And he ignores the bear pit atmosphere to nail tops and lead by 2. Tops he wants to become the first Welsh winner of a PDC major in one of the most contentious and controversial finals you could ever wish to see.
Price won the match, securing his first major title, but the fallout came fast. The Darts Regulation Authority reviewed the incident and ruled that Price had crossed the line into gamesmanship. His behaviour wasn't just celebratory, it was calculated intimidation. The punishment? £12,000 for bringing the sport into disrepute, £8,000 for his behaviour in an earlier match against Simon Whitlock, £1,500 for social media comments after the event, a total of £21,500 in fines, a record in darts. Behind the scenes, it was a moment of reckoning. He appealed, and while the fine was eventually reduced slightly, the message was clear. He could be the villain, but there were limits. Ironically, the controversy made him even more famous. He leaned into the bad guy persona, embracing the boos from the crowd and using them as fuel. And it worked. He went on to become world #1. But while Price's antics cost him money, they didn't derail his career. Others haven't been so lucky. Some players never recovered from their scandals, left wondering what could have been. From accusations of cheating to criminal convictions, darts has seen its fair share of shocking moments, and these were just a few of them. Click here to see moments when darts players were caught cheating,